Welcome everybody to the Tuesday night Keystone Big Buck Workshop. I am Rob K., recovered alcoholic, sobriety date October 11th, 2013. This workshop is facilitated by Tony.R. and Katie J. We will keep everybody muted during the workshop except for the facilitators. Please note that we will be taking questions after the meeting, so please write them down so that you don't forget them. Any inappropriate conduct will not be tolerated, and you will be removed by one of the co-hosts. Have a great meeting. How we open this meeting is with the set-aside prayer. Dear God, please set aside everything I think I know about myself, this book, my disease, these steps, and especially about you, dear God, so that I might have an open mind and a new experience with all these things. Please help me see the truth. Tony, don't take it away, and don't forget to unmute yourself, please.
Right on. I'm a recovered alcoholic. My name's Tony. Sobriety date's April 8, 1989. We're going to get right into this. I thank you guys for your patience over the last couple of weeks. It took a little while to do step 3. You notice that? Like, there's a lot of effort going into it. It's not like people just make a decision, do step 3. There's a lot of thought into that, and they follow that up by what they how they start this idea here on page 63. So we see at the top of 63, it was their experience as the result of this course of action, right? They talk about this experience, and as we start going in here on page 63, they talk about as we felt new power flow in. So what was the whole purpose of this thing, or what was the whole problem, is lack of power is our dilemma, right? So they're saying as they felt new power flow in, where did they feel this power flowing in? It became personal. It resided within inside of themselves, as they talked on page 55. So they had an experience with this thing as what? As the result of going through this course of action. We agreed on that. I told you we're going to hit the ground running here. How many people are present? That's not bad. That's a good start, okay? So now they're saying we are now at step 3. Remember a couple weeks ago, we were saying like the introduction to step 3 is page 44. And how many people stumbled on that idea a bit? Nobody being honest today. After the meeting, that boy ain't right. So, page 44, the introduction to step 3. Well, it is, because if you didn't need a psychic change or spiritual experience, you would have stopped reading by now, right? You wouldn't have carried on, like once they qualify you on page 44. So we see that the beginning of this thing. So then when we got to page 60, it talked about being convinced we were at step 3. Well, how did we get there? Well, that was the preparation, right? From 44 to page 60 was a preparation. We're now at step 3. It has us there. And then they're going to explain what they meant by that. And then they went through page 61, 62. And have you noticed they stopped really talking about alcoholism and they started talking about the human condition? How many people has clued into that part? Mm-hmm. And it started on what page? 44. Right? It started on us trying to be our own solution. Nobody in this group, right? And the dilemma of that, a better philosophy, right? Looking at our behaviors. How many people had sponsorship like that? Let's look at your behaviors. You need to work on your behaviors, right? Not your spiritual condition. We're going to work on your behaviors. You're going to spend time focusing on the problem. You're going to spend time focusing on you. How many people find that a great exercise? Right? At the end of the day, how many people spent all day thinking about themselves at one time or another over the last week? How many people went, boy, that was a great exercise. I can't wait to do that again. Like, so we see that's part of the dilemma. So here they're saying, on 63, as we felt new power flow in. Everybody there? We're going to start with that idea. That's whose experience, those that went before us. So they're giving us an overview or a synopsis of what? Of the whole course of action. There's actually people who said, oh, this is the step 3 promise. No, it's not the step 3 promise. It's an overview of the course of action and the experience they had doing this thing. Yes, no, maybe. How many people have heard that before? Oh, these are the step 3 promises, implying I should be feeling these things as I do step 3. It is not. right? It's they're not looking at it correctly. So let's start. We might as well start at the top. Why not? When we sincerely took such a position, and that would be making a decision that we did last week to what? To go through the course of action. Yes, no? We all agreed on that? Let's participate. Let me see. I'm not talking to myself on the screen. Hopefully I've evolved from that. Okay, go ahead.
My name is Katie. I'm an alcoholic. Top of page 63. When we sincerely took such a position, all sorts of remarkable things followed. We had a new employer. Being all-powerful, he provided what we needed if we kept close to him and performed his work well.
Underline that. That's a contract between you and Source. You can remember that at any time of your sobriety, you could call God on that. Say, hey, you said you'd look after me. Right? And I've done that. And in early sobriety, when I was doing my nines and all that stuff, this is a contract I was told between me and God. He'll provide all that I need. That's a heavy statement when you think about that. You notice it didn't say all that I want. Oh boy, Nintendo, this, that. No, it's not that kind of stuff. All that I need. What? To function at a level that produces comfortability. They'll get into it. Go ahead.
Established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves.
What's our first obsession?
Self.
How many people found that surprising? Yeah. Don't point at your wife. No. Okay, go ahead.
Our little plans and designs. More and more, we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life.
Isn't that a shift? Isn't that a shift? Remember that in Bill's story? When Bill was sitting there with Ebby, he was consumed with who? Self, but he couldn't see it. Remember, he even pushed a drink across to his friend who was there to help him. Hey, here, have a drink. What? Is that not the epitome of self-centeredness, right? Then he went through the course of action, and we've seen that there was a shift as what? As the result of the course of action. He was to check his newfound thinking with who? With a new God consciousness within. That was the first shift. That he was no longer in counsel with himself. What's step 11 say? Right? We're in counsel with something greater than ourselves. What does step 10 say? We're still in counsel with self. That's why a lot of people like step 10. They don't like 11. When I think there's a problem, then I'll bring God into it. Anybody? Right? Here, the counsel is, if I'm checking all my newfound thinking with a new God consciousness within, then I'm in relationship. It's different, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Right? And so we see the transition in Bill's life as what? As he went through this process, he had this transition. And who else had it? Everybody that went through it. There was a shift in consciousness. Okay, go ahead.
As we felt new power flow in, as we enjoyed peace of mind.
So what's happening first? Is the access to the power. What creates the change? The relationship with this power. Consciousness. Right? Having that experience. You notice that it didn't say, as I continue to work on myself and felt better about self, as I applied self to self. It doesn't say that. But how many people hear that in meetings? How many people get taught that? I'm working on my behaviors. Well, your behaviors, we're going to find out, is a derivative of your spiritual condition. Well, how do we know that? Well, that's what they said on page 62. So our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. They arise out of ourselves. But I can't see that. Why? Because I haven't done the process yet. If I could see it, then I wouldn't need to do the process, would I? If I'm being driven by 100 forms of fear and self-delusion, who's the only one that don't know it? Now's a good time not to point at anybody.
Me.
Right? So it's not, you didn't see that, John. It's okay, man. No, just joking. So we're the only ones that don't see it. And we've seen how our thinking is, right? Because how many people's read page 62 or heard somebody read it before? Everybody. Yeah. How many people thought about somebody else it applied to? As they're reading, say, I know somebody like that. Oh, yeah. No wonder I have problems. Huh? I've never met anybody who went, oh my God, that's me. Because if I was able to see it, then I wouldn't be driven by these things. It's stuff that happens at a subconscious level. They arise out of ourselves, creating stumbling blocks not only for us, but the people around us. And we can't see it. Right? And they retaliate, and we get resentful at them for not making us feel better. So how many people use people, places, and things as a form of a drink to look for a sense of ease and comfort, right? In people, places, and things. Nobody in this group, I know that, right? And then when they stop doing that, then what? We start fixating on them because they got to be the problem. That's why I never ask my wife more than twice what's the matter. She tells me twice, nothing, I believe her, because the third time I ask her, I become the problem.
Always.
Always. She goes, well, I don't know what the problem is. Well, what's going on, honey? You okay? You sure? What's the matter? Well, nothing really. Well, it seems like something wrong. Yeah, I guess it must be you. Right? How many people have those conversations with people? Anyway, they arise out of ourselves, right? Because now our instincts is interfering with their instincts, and we can't see how we set the whole ball rolling because we're still self-based. But this is all happening at a subconscious level. So what we see in our lives is the aftermath. How many people are really smart here in hindsight? After the car wreck, we get a car. Fuck, I seen how that happened. Beforehand, not so much, right? So that's our problem. In hindsight, we're the smartest people in the world, but what happens is we forget before it happens again. We created it. And then, oh yeah, and that's the story. Why is this always happening to me? How many people have that? I can't believe story. I can't believe. Why can't you believe? You're the same person that caused the other shit. Why are you surprised? Why are you surprised that this keep happening? Because you're using the same GPS. You're in conflict with you, so that means you're in conflict with everybody. Oh, this here's where you get offended. We just lost 4 people. And the problem is with doing studies like this, I become the fixation of, yeah, I'm now your problem, that asshole. You know how many people over the years have said, you know, when I met you, I didn't like you. Of course you didn't. You didn't like yourself. Of course you don't like me. Right? Right? Anyways, moving on. So this access to this power. So how do we get access to this power? That's what this book is about. Right? So if I did what they did, they're confirming they have this experience through doing this process. When we sincerely took such a position. We all tuned into that? We good? Yes? Yeah. No? How many people? Yes? Okay. Go ahead.
As we became conscious of his presence, we began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, or the hereafter. We were reborn.
How many people like that idea? Mm-hmm. Huh? That's not too sure. We were reborn, meaning having a new experience with life. I didn't like that terminology before. It took years before I didn't get the little, right? Because of my background, the reborn, it has that kind of, that evangelical thing, right? So that means if I'm a little disturbed by something, I need to find another way of looking at it. That way it doesn't disturb me when being presented. It did for years. I mean, up to probably maybe 3 years ago, I didn't get to, I had to every time I got to, I had to revisit the idea, reborn, a new experience. Because anyways, without getting into it, we'll get into it after. Okay, go ahead.
We were now at step 3.
We were now at step 3. Now we're there. We're now at step 3, meaning we prepared you. We got you everything you need to sidestep whatever bullshit you got going on in yourself or other convictions or other religious ideas. Whatever you have bringing to the table, you could leave sidebar and be willing to pursue this solution to get this thing. Remember the bare minimum, right? Bill, when he sat at the kitchen table, he said all it was a matter of being willing. And in his book, I talked about being willing to be willing. To what? To believe. If I got access to this power, I could have this thing. So does that mean I have to have God at this point in time? Do I have to have a relationship with God here?
Nope.
I don't even have to believe that there is a God. But I have to believe that there's access to this power that creates the change. I could call it creative intelligence, Apple, Siri, whatever, you know what I mean? Like with the idea of not, like, my phone is an Apple and you have an Android or someone has a Samsung. It's secondary, but do we all believe the purpose of the phone when we get access? That kind of that idea. So I believe that there is this thing and I could get access to it. That's the bare minimum of it. Go ahead.
We are now at step 3. Many of us said to our Maker as we understood him, God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always.
So what you want to write there is a summary of step 12. What confirms step 3? The idea, because step 3 is an idea. What confirms that is step 11. What confirms step 2 is step 12. What confirms step 1 is another drink. Right? You see how there's where anybody having a hard time with that? Because here's an idea of this relationship. If I was able to have the relationship, would I need to do the rest of the work? No. It talks about an experience, right? Bear witness to those I would help with thy power. Well, I would have to experience that in order to help other people of it, wouldn't I? So that would be 11 and 12, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm. Relieve me of the bondage of self. Well, wouldn't that be 4, 5, 6, and 7? Huh? Yeah. This relationship, isn't that 11? Interesting. Okay, so then what does it say?
It says, we thought well before taking this step.
Listen, we thought well before taking the step. Didn't mean I was well. That's not what they mean.
Thank God.
Thank God. We thought well, making sure we know what we're doing here. Right? And what are we doing? I'm on a life and death errand, some of us. Right? Because we have two alternatives: to go on the way I'm going, or to accept spiritual help for a new experience, a psychic change or a spiritual experience. The only way I can have what the writer is talking about, or those that went before me, is to have the same recipe that they're doing. I can't get this by thinking it or hoping it or just trying to fabricate it on my own. How many people's tried that? Or better philosophy or better understanding, acceptance and all that stuff. It works for other people, but it don't work for us. Why? Because we need to have a psychic change or spiritual experience in order to recover. Why? Because we have an alcoholic mind. Right? Meaning I have this malady as described on page 23. I can't get rid of it. I am not qualified to treat alcoholism. So I have a solution for it where they remove it. Mm-hmm. Because once I recover, do I still have an alcoholic mind? No, that's the whole purpose of doing this. Came to believe that a power greater could restore me to sanity. Doesn't mean, I remember this guy saying this once, go back and think about a time you'd like to be restored to. I got so depressed I went drinking that night. There was no time in my life I wanted to go back to. If you know my story, there's nothing appealing about any time in my life. I thought, my God, is that only what I have to hope for, is to go back to what I'm trying to escape? What an order. That's not what they mean. Soundness of mind means the ability to see the truth in things. Soundness of mind, the ability to see the truth. And if a problem's removed, that means I'm not dealing with it anymore. But when tempted, I'll be able to recoil from it based on my relationship with the power greater myself. That's a daily reprieve. It's not asking much when you look at the people who is really experiencing this. When you look at a guy like me, coming up to 33 years, right? They don't ask a lot to enjoy this thing. You kind of get that later, right? Okay, go ahead.
We thought well before taking this step, making sure we were ready, that we could at last abandon ourselves utterly to him.
Making sure we're ready. So this goes with how it works. It says, willing to go to any lengths. Where are those lengths? And how many people got a pen and paper beside them?
Yep.
Willing to go to any lengths. Write down beside on that paper what they mean by that. Willing to go to any lengths. What lengths are they talking about? Willing to go to any lengths where? This is what I said. When my sponsor, the guy who was 12-stepping me without knowing it, who conned me into a big book study, this is what he said. He conned me into that's how sick I was. I didn't see he says, hey, why don't you come and help us out? I'll see you next Tuesday. Anyway, so he goes, willing to go to any lengths. I thought it meant like 90 meetings in 90 days. Willing to go from North Vancouver to Surrey for a meeting. And that's what I thought it meant. Willing to go to any lengths. Willing to, not watch TV for a night and go to a meeting instead. I can't be the only one that thought that. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm the only one that's sick here. Okay. Willing to go to inside of yourself, to face the things that you've always been running from. Mm-hmm. How many people have been running from themselves here? And I know exactly why you're willing to face yourself. You know how I know? Because this is how I know. Because the pain of your existence is greater than the pain you're running from. Mm-hmm. How many people been there? When the pain of your existence is greater than the pain you're running from, then you become willing. Because if you could stay ahead of yourself, you wouldn't be sitting here listening to this stuff, would you?
No.
Huh? Like I know some of you came in here dragging your feet like, oh shit, I'm going to listen to that asshole again, but nobody else is willing to talk to me. So, you know how I know that? Because that was me 32 years ago. If there was anywhere else I could have went or anything else I could have done, I would have done it. I went with these whack jobs. And they saved my life. I used to sit there thinking, these guys are whacked right out of the nut front. That's what I'm thinking as they're helping me. I'm thinking, oh my God. At step 3. I'm still arguing and fighting, but I'm willing. You got it? You see what I'm saying? Because what don't I have a solution for? I don't have a solution for me or my thinking or my emotions, do I? So all that thinking, all that shit, we know. Bondage, difficulties, we know what you're thinking. And you catch about 2 minutes of an hour meeting. That's good. That's progress. Couple days from now, you go, oh, that's what he meant. A couple years from now, you go, holy shit, that's what they meant. Okay, so go ahead. Abandon. What does abandon mean? Abandon means the same as surrender? So when they say abandon ship, does that need much explanation? If you see the ship, to stay on it would mean your demise, and they were saying abandon ship, would you say, okay, give me 2 seconds to go gather some things from my room? No, based on the assessment of the situation, you would get into the lifeboat being provided to you to move to a new vessel. Yes or no?
Uh-huh.
This is the new vessel being provided, is the spiritual principles or spiritual course of action. The path, what we're offering, is rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. What's the path? Is the spiritual principles laid out in this and allowing us to get access to a power that creates the change. After we get access to that change, we don't need to work the steps anymore. We work principles in regards to relationship. So people who actually do this don't do 10, 11, and 12 every day, because if you're saying that, we already know you're full of shit. Because if you were doing 10, 11, and 12 every day, well, let's look at it. If you're doing 11, you wouldn't need to do 10, would you? Mm. And if you were doing 12, being of service and helping, then you're doing all of it. Too heavy, right? So it's like people say, oh, I pray on my hands and knees every day. You just told me you're lying. How many people pray on their hands and knees here like my Cosmo? Right? No, we pray on our knees. Anyway, that's what my sponsor said. Well, some people, okay, on their hands and knees, kind of look funny, I guess. Okay. Hands and knees. Next time when you're alone, you just go on your hands and knees and you'll see what I'm talking about in a minute, okay? Don't do it now. Do it later. Hands and knees. Okay. Piggyback
Okay.
ride. Okay, go ahead.
We found it very desirable to take the spiritual step with an understanding person, such as our wife, best friend, or spiritual advisor. But it is better to meet God alone than with one who might misunderstand. The wording was, of course, quite optional, so long as we expressed the idea.
Express the idea. What idea? So we see step 3 is an idea. How many people got upset when I said that earlier? Come on. The step 3 was only an idea. How many people say, oh, this guy, and then we read, oh, step 3, okay. Says it there, okay. It's an idea. What's the idea? We thought well before taking the idea of having this experience that only this course of action could obtain for people like us. And what's that? Is the psychic change of spiritual experience, which is a byproduct of my relationship with a power greater than myself. But first I need to experience that in order to have the symptoms of a psychic change of spiritual experience. So what happens first, my relationship or the psychic change of spiritual experience?
Relationship.
The relationship. That's why it says as the result. It's already happened before we get to 12.
Cool.
Oh, whoa, getting heavy now. So I seen that look on a couple people's face there, right? As the result means it's already taken place, has it not? When you're on your GPS and you go from here to, say, to Toronto, when you get there, it'll say, hey, as the result of this GPS, I'm now in Toronto. I may not be in the location that I'm at my mom's place, but I'm in Toronto. When the plane lands in Toronto, I'm in Toronto. Does that kind of make sense? I'm there. And then I move to my location. Okay. Go ahead.
Cool. The wording was, so this was only a beginning. Though if honestly and humbly made an effect, sometimes a very great one was felt at once.
So humbly and humility, do they both mean the same thing?
Yeah.
How many people need a second? Does humbly and humility mean the same thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. To humble yourself, to show humility, to humble, to show humidity. Well, I'm getting word salad again. So humility means the need of something, the need of this relationship. I'm asking humbly, can you help me?
Yeah.
Can you help me? Because without this relationship, I'm not going to make it. That was my step 3. I don't know who or what you are, man, but you're working in everybody else's life. My understanding and my pursuit in the past nearly got me killed. Can you hook me up? That may sound kind of weird, but that was my step. Can you hook me up? Can you help me out? I'm asking here. Can you show yourself to me as you did my friends and the people that went before me? Can you allow me to have the same experience? I'm willing. Can you hook me up? Show me. That was my step 3. Show me. Does that take humility to say something like that?
Sure it does.
Do you need to humble yourself before you could even ask that?
Yeah.
So is humility and being humble the same thing? Yeah. You ever have to ask somebody for something that you don't want to ask? You need to recognize you need to ask that. And humility, some of us end up dead before we ask anybody for anything. Nobody in this group, right?
No.
I was. The story comes out. I was sober a while. This is what I was dealing with without realizing the level that a lot of us pursue it into the gates of insanity and death before the inability to be honest at a core level, to recognize our situation. I was thinking probably 3 years sober, 2 years sober. Through this process, things were going good. I ended up fishing at a lake in BC. I come from the streets of Toronto, so fishing isn't my strong suit. I don't know why, but I was in a nice shady part of the beach. For some strange reason, my head told me there was more fish on the other side of the lake. So I went humping along the rocks, and I got to the other side of the lake. Well, what was happening on the other side of the lake was all rocks. It was all sun. I was in the sun with no shade. And it was beaming off the water. What I started having was exposure from the sun. Anybody ever hear that stuff? So now I'm lying against the rocks, and I'm realizing I'm in trouble here. I see a canoe going by. I know I need help. This is what I said. I said, God, you know I'm going to die here before I ask them for help. Could you ask them to ask me if I'm all right? I'm on the rock, and I'm burnt, like I'm looking like a lobster. Right? I said, and I'm talking to God, and these people go, they're looking at me, right? They go, hey, man, you okay? I said, yeah, I'm having a bit of problems. He said, would you like some help? I said, sure. I got in this boat, could hardly walk, right? And then, so this is what we're dealing with. I got in this canoe, and the back of the canoe numbed my legs the way I was sitting, but I got up and I could hardly walk. I was holding onto my track pants and I'm red. My girlfriend at the time seen me, she goes, oh my God. Her assessment of the situation was different than my assessment of the situation. Does that kind of make sense? And that's like our lives. Our assessment of the situation is way different than the actual assessment of the situation. You ask the people around you in regards to you, you'll get a way different answer about your situation than you're giving. Anybody? So here you've assessed yourself and you're seeing yourself for the first time maybe as everybody else sees you. So now in hindsight, even in that moment, I was able to see myself as everybody else seen me. But as I made this decision here, it'd be kind of like the same thing. I had a moment of clarity where I was able to see myself the way everybody else seen me. And it was like, I'm lucky to be here. I don't know if that kind of makes any kind of sense, but I would not ask for help. Anybody like that here?
Yep.
Even to your own demise, you will not ask for help. Starving, you will not ask nobody for nothing. But here, to humble yourself based on your situation is, I need this relationship with this power to have a different experience. So I'm making a conscious decision to formulate a relationship. I'm not surrendering, right? I'm enlisting. I'm not being drafted. I'm not being punished. Right? I'm seeing the benefit of having this relationship with this power. Is that a big difference than surrendering? Because surrendering gives you the idea that you're being beaten into submission. I'm beating myself into submission. I see the need and the benefit of this relationship. Right? And that's when I'm making the decision. I want to formulate a relationship with this, like when I met my wife. It was like, wow, I want to formulate a relationship and then a marriage. And that's what we're doing here. It's like, you know what? I want a long-term commitment with this relationship where it's personal to me and I'm engaged in it. How many people think that's pretty exciting? It's not a dictatorship. It's not something that if I don't listen, I get punished. It's something that I consciously want to be in because I see the benefit of it. What's the benefit? What they talked about at the top of the page and everybody that went before me. So what do I got to do here? I got carried away with that a little longer than I should have, but it's when we look at things differently like that, it kind of opens up to a whole new spectrum of what's available to us. It's way different than the idea of surrender, being punished, and this thing sitting in the clouds and all that other stuff, right? Isn't it?
Yeah.
Or I have to go somewhere to obtain this. I have to something outside of me. I got to go find this thing. It's here. It's with me. I need to get access to it. Wow, that's pretty cool. When I think about that, it's really cool. Where somewhere you are at and what you're going to experience is mind-boggling. I'm so happy for some of you people. It's just absolutely great because I know a lot of you have experienced this, but what lies ahead of you is beyond anything you could ever imagine. You got the story of Alcoholics Anonymous at your fingertips, right? Because it's not your story that you're pursuing anymore. Right? What is it? It's the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous happening in your life. Do you want our story happening in your life? It's not your story. We've seen what you did. Do you want to keep doing it? No? Good. Good. Who convinced you that? You convinced you that you no longer want you to be running your shit for you. We didn't have to do it. You'll find it funny after you do your 5. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Next, we launched on a course of vigorous action, the first step of which is a personal house cleaning.
Next, we launched on a vigorous course of action, the first step of what? The first step in what? Bringing about this decision. Because you can do step 1. You hear people do, I do step 1, 2, and 3 every day. That's a nice way of saying they don't do anything. No.
Yeah.
I do step 1 every day. Okay. Then step 1 doesn't apply to you.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get into it heavy there. Because if you could do step 1 every day to keep you sober, then would it apply to you?
Nope.
No. So, right? And if step 2 is just about, so we see that I need to confirm my decision. So on a piece of paper, what confirms my step 3? The voicing of it, and I could be sobbing, and I could have the evangelical emotional sobriety moment, heartfelt, all that other stuff. You know how we could, anybody prone to real drama here? We bring in our own band, and we could really make a, anybody? Huh?
Probably.
Oh yeah. Anyway, so we could fabricate this, like we're I don't want to say drama queens, that's so insensitive, but we're like, man, like we could really put shit over the top, can't we, when we're left to thinking? Hey? How many people's had thinking that's even freaked them out? And you know it's freaking you out. How many people's had thinking, you're going, oh my God, I don't like this at all. But you want to see how it ends. So you stay in it. Okay, go ahead. So what confirms our decision in step 3 is step 4. If I haven't started step 4, have I done step 3?
No.
People participate with me here. If I've done step 3 and I haven't started on 4, have I done step 3? No. Right? So my decision, even though I've bullshitted myself, is, I've done step 3. Have you started your 4? No, then you haven't done step 3 yet. The confirmation of 3 is step 4. What? To pursue this course of action, to move in this direction, to abandon the path I was on for a new one. My GPS now is saying turn my will and life over, meaning when I set my GPS is I want a psychic change or spiritual experience, right? So I set my GPS, it says calculating, here's the new route, turn left here. Right? When nothing looks right, it's time to go left. Right? So that's what we're doing. Nothing's looking right, we're going left, right? Okay. So, lunged out on a vigorous course. So that means next week, next month, or right now?
Now.
Go ahead.
Which many of us have never attempted.
So we already know, which many of us know. We know if you think you can find another way of doing stuff for you, you're going to find it.
Uh-huh.
Because there's a purpose for step 4. Right? And they're going to tell us the purpose of step 4. A lot of people think it's all a nasty, evil thing. That's not the purpose of step 4. You hear people say, it's to see how I used to be like. No, that's not the purpose of step 4 either. The purpose of step 4 is to see how you're like on a non-spiritual basis. People go, oh, my old behaviors. If you're still doing them, they're not old behaviors, are they? Right? So, I need to see what? There's a couple things. It's going to explain to me the purpose of step 4 here. Right? Because it's going to reiterate. It does this through this process. It reiterates the purpose of things. Because they know we're going to start thinking. And with other people's influences, we'll think it means something else other than what it means. So the book will go back to, it will recircle to reiterate what this is about. Meaning, what's this about? Is lack of power, to get access to the power. What's the purpose of the book? Is to enable me to have this experience. Yes, no, we on that page? So let's see if it revisits that idea here. Go ahead.
Though our decision was a vital and crucial step, it could have little permanent effect unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in ourselves which have been blocking us.
So, underline that. So what am I looking for in this? To find out what my character defects are? To find out more about me? I already know about me. How many people don't know their story here? How many people's gone over their story? They're sick of going over it. Mm-hmm. You hear people say, I'm doing a 4-step. You already know all the bullshit that you're going to put on there. There's nothing new. Oh my God, I never knew. Yeah, you did. Like, that shit, you've been going over your 4-step for years now. At intervals. How many people have gone over their story over and over and over? Oh my God, I got to look at it now. Fuck, you've been looking at it for years. They can't even close the closet door anymore. There's so much shit in there. Right? It's kind of, you look at it and go, oh my God. Okay, let's go through it again. You take it and move it to another closet. Right? And pretty soon even, come on. How many people? Okay, how many people don't know their story here? Okay, so there's got to be more to that. So what we're looking for is to be rid of the things that have been blocking us. Blocking us from what? The source. Where's the source? Within. Right? Oh, that's a whole different thing here. So they're going to set us up with looking at things differently now. There's a preparation in the... like they did with step 1, they prepared us for it. Then we did it. It's like step 2, they prepared us for it. Step 3, they prepared us for it with information. Yes or no? Now they're going to prepare us for step 4. What they mean by that, what it looks like that, and the purpose of it. How many people find that cool? So you're not going in blindly. They're going to say, here's the purpose of step 4 and why you need to learn it and what it looks like or the kind of same principles involved of why you need a new way of looking at things. You need a new way of assessing things. You need to be a new way of looking at your life because the way you have been looking at it hasn't worked for you. You haven't been able to be rid of the things in yourselves that have been blocking you, right? It's a strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in ourselves which have been strenuous. You're not going to like it. What you're not going to like about it is you're going to find out the 10% of the things that cause 90% of your story.
Yeah.
That's what and what you're not going to like is now that you're telling on yourself. Now you're going to start seeing a lot of the shit you've been saying isn't true. And you know it. Right? But now you're going to start seeing how really unwell you are. Right? It's like, okay, we're going to clean the kitchen now. Oh my God. Anybody remember when they're kitchen, you see the water in the dishes pile and you see that layer of film on top of the water? How many people? And you know you got to stick your hand in that water to pluck it? How many people walk by that sink a couple days? No, not today. Not today. Or you try to find something long enough where you don't have to put your hand in there. Come on, I can't be the only one. That's how we go through our lives. And this is shit. Okay, I got to go. And then you roll up your sleeve and you put your hand in there and you pull it. It's like, and you get that film all over you and then you got to wash it off. How many people have been there, experienced that?
Yep.
That's like your 4-step. But once you've done it, it's pretty cool, right? Once you clean your kitchen and everything's done, it's like, yeah, you don't remember all the stuff it took you to have that feeling of, wow, this is cool. It's like, how many people clean their bathroom here? What's the first thing you do when you clean your bathroom? You want to take a shower. Anybody? Just clean your sheets. This is a whole experience. Right? Oh, maybe it took me a little while to experience that in sobriety. I better move on. Okay, go ahead. So they're preparing us here. Go ahead.
Okay. It could have little permanent, or our liquor was but a symptom. So we had to get down to the causes and conditions.
Causes and conditions, right? So underline that. We're getting down to the causes and conditions. So if we were to go to you, what are the causes and conditions? You'd probably do some sound bite or something you heard, but you wouldn't be able to see the things within your own self that's caused your failure or to cause you to repeat your same story over and over again. Because there's alcoholism and then there's your story. How many people have the same kind of outlay of their story. Okay, go ahead.
Yep. Therefore, we started upon a personal inventory. This was step 4. A business which takes no regular inventory usually goes broke. Taking a commercial inventory is a fact-finding and a fact-facing process. It is an effort to discover the truth about the stock in trade.
What's so bad about that? Right? So we're the business, fact-finding, fact-facing, because the way I've looked at life has kept me in pain, misery, and stuck to my story. How many people have been stuck to their story here?
Yep.
Right? Because my story is what defines me. No, what defines you is your attachment to it. Right? Is your attachment to the story that defines you. Wow, that's different here. So if I had a new way of looking at things, a fact-finding fact, and to what? To discover
the truth about the stock in trade. One object is to disclose damaged or unsaleable goods, to get rid of them promptly and without regret.
How many people sorted out their laundry here? You're in your room, maybe it's just a guy thing, but sometimes I have to see, is this clean laundry or is that dirty laundry? It kind of, right? Because I don't want to put the dirty laundry back in the drawers again. I got to sort it out.
If it's dirty?
Huh? Yeah.
How do you tell it's
the same way everybody does.
Dangerous game.
Same. Huh? Yeah. It's like we all wipe our ass the same way, right? Okay, so go ahead. Did I just say that out loud? Oh my God, the inside voice. But it's true, right?
I said yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. To get rid of them promptly and without regret. If the owner of the business is to be successful, he cannot fool himself about values.
So that means the person I am today is not the same person I was when I did this. And I had to see these things to be the person I am today. Right? To where do I bring, well, I call it the sunlight of the, where do I bring God into these things? Right? Or where is God in these things? Or where's the absence of God in these? Or absence of power? Where's the, like, where I had to see these things in order to create change where? Within me. By accessing this power, by not fooling myself about value and how I believed and how I seen things. Because it's how I seen things and how I believe that define me as a human being. Define my relationships in the world about me at a subconscious level. And I couldn't change those things at a subconscious level, so I had a new way. I needed this process to look at things differently. First, to assess what I had and the willingness to get rid of them promptly without regret. That means in order to get rid of an old idea, I need to have a new one. Does that kind of make sense? I need to have a new way of looking at things. That means I end up with two ways of looking at things. The way I used to look at things, or the way I can look at things, and a new way of wanting to look at things by going through a process, an inventory process, to see if it meets the requirements of an asset or something to get rid of. That's what they're saying here. You see what they're saying here? Is that pretty cool? That's what they're going to show us. We're now, therefore, this was step 4. This is step 4. This is the process that we need to learn. Have we learned it yet? That means they're going to teach me this process. This is step 4. What's step 4? This recipe that they're talking here. How many people's heard that before described like that? Pretty interesting, right?
Yeah, very.
Okay, go ahead.
Therefore, we started upon a personal inventory. This was step 4. A business which takes no regular inventory usually goes broke. Taking a commercial inventory is a fact-finding and a fact-facing process. It is an effort to discover the truth about the stock in trade. One object is to disclose damaged or unsaleable goods and get rid of them promptly without regret. If the owner of the business is to be successful, he cannot fool himself about values. We did exactly the same thing with our lives. We took stock honestly. First, we searched out the flaws in our makeup which caused our failure.
So who's going to give us that recipe?
They are right now.
They're going to give us their process on how to assess these things. Because if I was able to do that, then I wouldn't need to do a 4-step, would I? What does it say, Katie?
It says, we did exactly the same thing with our lives. We took stock honestly. First, we searched out the flaws in our makeup which caused our failure. Being convinced that self, manifested in various ways, was what had defeated us, we considered its common manifestation.
So they're saying there's a lot of stuff that defeats us, but we're going to look at the big items. And if you know the recipe to the big items, you'll be able to break it down to the smaller items because it's all a derivative of the same tree or the same branch, right? That rise out of ourselves. And so if you're able to recognize certain things as they're developing or where they originate from within us, then it doesn't matter on the size of it. I don't know if that kind of makes sense, right? It's like when you see a broken piece of glass, whether it's a whole bunch of glass or one piece of glass, you know the potential danger of it. Is that like when I'm walking my dog and I see one piece of glass, I know I got to watch it because my dog could just get as hurt if it was a broken bottle there. Does that kind of make sense? Easily able to sidestep it. But for us, it's one big, huge broken bottles all over the place that we can't sidestep anymore. So they're saying here, let's get down to its common manifestations, right? So we're going to look at the common things that create what? The blockages. Because we're looking for the blockages. We're not looking for the triggers. We're not looking for our behaviors. We're looking for what, people? The blockages. They're very specific there. As if we were looking for triggers, it would have said triggers, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm. Or if we were looking to work on our behaviors, wouldn't it say that there? So we're going to look at the things that we need to work on. No, it's moving into second stage recovery, and it's about what are the things that are blocking me from this relationship with Source that's going to create the change, right? That these people talk about as a daily reprieve that I need to obtain. I don't have a daily reprieve yet. These people have. I want what they have, and I need to do what they do, but I need to understand what they do to do it. If that makes sense, you're in the right room. Okay, okay, go ahead. It's when we have our own language. You ever notice that? We're like, yeah. And other people are like, what the hell are you talking about? Okay. So if you got that, you passed. Okay, let's move on.
Resentment is the number one offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else.
So we're saying, what's the number one offender? What destroys? You notice it didn't say alcoholism. Mm-hmm. It says resentments. Mm-hmm. Right? And is this classified to just the alcoholic? Or is this one of the human dilemmas? Anybody know people who are not alcoholic who are pissed off?
Yeah.
Right? So normal people can afford resentments. We can't. Why? Because it blocks us off from Source, where the insanity returns. Does that kind of make sense? So resentment is the number one offender, right? It destroys. So look at the wording here. Go ahead.
It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. From it.
Hold it. From it. From it. So what are we talking about? We're talking about resentments now, right? From the resentments, from it. Right? What?
Stem all form of spiritual disease.
Spiritual disease. So you hear, alcoholism is a spiritual... Did it say alcoholism is a spiritual disease? Does it say we have a spiritual disease? It says the resentment. From the resentment forms all forms of spiritual disease. Not being right? So when you have a resentment, it's like a cyst on our spirit. And if you actually have an abscess in your mouth, anybody ever have an abscess here? No people. It could actually kill you. How many people knew that? I didn't know that. That could actually kill you. So the pain. So it's the abscess that causes you all your problems. Yes, you have a problem with your tooth, but it was the ignoring of that caused the abscess. And the abscess is what actually has the potential of killing you. So here it's like the same thing. Yes, the resentment is the number one thing, but it creates an abscess. And from that creates more. It's like when you're pissed off, you notice it starts compounding. How many people notice that? It's not just one thing. It just starts building.
Yeah.
Building, and pretty soon it's a nuclear assault on anybody in close proximity of you, right? Okay, go ahead. Let's blow this shit up. Oops, sorry. I have anger issues. No. No. You have undealt with resentments that's still eating your lunch that you're involving other people with. So from it comes all forms of spiritual disease. Go ahead.
For we have not only been mentally and physically ill.
We've covered that, right? Mentally and physically ill. Mentally and physically ill. Mentally, the malady as discussed on page 23 and further explained from page 33 to 44. This condition, this phenomena that parallels with our sound thinking, not the obsession, the malady, the blank spot, this thing that lurks there that parallels with our sound thinking that fails to keep us in check. And we continue to drink because it's an illness of the mind. They call it a malady. It's really an unexplainable condition. That's why they use the word malady. You can look up the word malady. It has a lot of different terms in it. But there is not one specific to cover this thing that lies within our mind. Right? Go ahead.
For we have not only been mentally and physically ill, we've been spiritually sick. When the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically.
So, why are we spiritually sick?
Because of resentment.
Yeah. Did it say alcoholism? Has it mentioned once the spiritual malady or spiritual disease in association with step one? Or alcoholism that makes us alcoholic. And you hear that. So it sounds good though. Oh, I was spiritually sick, then I became alcoholic. Or I had a spiritual malady, that made me thirsty and I became alcoholic. And it'd be nice to be able to tie alcoholism to an excuse, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it? I'm an alcoholic because of, well, what happens to the guy that's normal or woman that's normal in every sense except the effect of alcohol has on him? Oh, they use an example of that in the book. Well-learning capacity. Even the doctor talked about building that aspect. Well, he was a good businessman, but he had the illness of alcoholism. He didn't say he was spiritually sick and developed alcoholism. He became sick. Why? Because of the resentment, undealt with. How many people were plagued by the shit they weren't dealing with when they got here? The stuff they were running from, the stuff that they weren't dealing with, the stuff that hurt, the pain and agony that alcohol didn't seem to alleviate anymore. So the effect wasn't working anymore. So the pain of our existence became now greater than the pain we're running from. Now we have to do something. Because if you could stay ahead of the pain, how many people would be doing a 4-step?
No.
So you caught up with you and you're not liking it. Well, welcome to everybody else's world. Yeah, you're not liking it. Ask the people around you. Sorry, because most of us, there's not many people left when we get here, right? Huh? Just mostly misunderstood. Yeah, I know. Go ahead.
In dealing with resentments, we set them on paper. We listed people, institutions, or principles with whom we are angry.
And that's as simple as, if you look on page 65, I'm resent Mr. Brown, Mr. Joe, my employer. We have a piece of paper, and we put everything that comes to mind on it. Just a list of people, places, and things. It's not about the story. It's about the blocks. We're stuck to the story. We think it's the story that makes us know. Is that we don't have the opportunity to change. Because how many people have been trying to change themselves, and we don't have the recipe to do that. Because they talked about that in the introduction of this thing. Lack of power is our dilemma. If a mere quote, a better philosophy, we've been trying to change ourselves for years. Anybody? And in the beginning, it was with a drink. How many people experience a personality change here when they drank?
Yep.
Yeah, feelings elusive, man. You know, and I wasn't plagued with resentment and all this other stuff. It just kind of made everything okay. Yeah, you guys go work on yourselves. I'm just going to work on another drink. Sorry, you're in counseling or church or community services. I'm going to the bar. That's a form of community service. I feel really good with my friends. They even have country songs like that, right? I love my bar. Anyways,
we listed people, institutions, principles with whom we're angry.
Anybody don't know who they're angry with?
Of course.
Oh yeah, I like this inventory so far. I'm writing about other people. I can do that. I used to say I'm not really angry at anybody. My sponsor said, "Well, write the people you still want to get even with." Oh, I got a few of those sons of a bitches, right? And he said, just keep it flowing. Anybody who you were, anybody that come to mind. And then it was kind of like it started with, no, I don't got really nobody, to 120. I just started putting police divisions, 52 division, 51 division, 27 division, the gang squad, the drug squad, this whole school, just the whole school, just put them all down, right? And so that's like, holy smokes, it seems like I'm pissed off at everybody. Nobody like that here. I like the alcoholics who say, I only have one or two resentments. And the most pissed off people you know, right? I only have one or two. I don't really have any, that you're willing to look at. But it eats your lunch on a constant basis. How many people have that Rolodex of thought of people, places, and things associated with the past? And you're in dialogue with them. Come on. How many people have been in dialogue with people that have long been out of your life? Let's go over this conversation again. Right? It's like, holy shit. They're long gone and you're still living it. Yeah, sons of a bitch. And you work yourself up too, eh? Anybody work themselves up? And God forbid anybody tries to interrupt that. Leave me alone. I'm writing some deep meditation right now. I don't want to rob myself. I was talking to a friend the other day. I said, well, what do you go to a meeting? Or he says, no, I'm in it now. Like, I'm in it now. And I understand that. Like, you know what? It takes me all that effort to get in it. Like, I don't want to give it up that easy. Anybody? Takes a lot of work to stay pissed off.
Sure does.
Sure does. Okay, so what do we do with these people we're pissed off at?
We asked ourselves why we were angry.
Period. So we see on the next page, it's not a big story. So on the worksheet, you put the one name down, like here, Mr. Brown, and then all the causes, right? And so if you have 4 pages of causes, just to the story, his attention to my wife, told my wife of my mistress, Brown may get my job at the office. Somebody, I like that t-shirt. You ever see the guy with the t-shirt says, Brown needs his ass kicked. Mr. Brown needs his ass kicked, right? I thought that it only take an alcoholic to come up with that, right? We're looking for no, he needs his ass kicked, right? All in favor, right? So it's kind of like, so we see that when he's talking, like we'll see in this case, Bill or whoever helped put this formula together, when they look at Brown and they know the story connected to this. Does that kind of make sense? And so when we just put those tidbits down, what it is kind of like a word search. Anybody ever Google something, you put a word and all this information? And that's what we have. It's kind of funny. We have all this stuff at a subconscious level. It's coming up in regards to little snapshots of people, places, and things that we write down. It may not make sense. And then when we look at the one person, we see there's all these different causes in regards to this one person, not the story. So what happens when I start getting stuck to the story, Katie? What should I do?
Okay. Go into prayer.
Yeah, and what's a good prayer that they've offered us so far?
You have the 3rd step prayer.
And then if you look at the wording, it kind of fits, doesn't it? Relieve me of the bondage of self. Take away my difficulties that I may have victory over them. Now, right? Seeking this power, seeking prayer, so I can have a different experience. For the first time, I'm trying to become an observer instead of a participant. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. And then I start seeing for the first time, I'm not my thinking. There's actually 2 parts to me. There's the subconscious, and then there's the thinker and the analyzer, right? The person that's able to look at things and reason. So when I put that down and I remind myself it's not about the story, I interrupt the story. And so when I interrupt the story, what am I cutting off? Is all those false, is kind of like, how can I have the same feeling today as I had 15 years ago? It's fabricated. I'm carrying all that energy connected to that thing because it's not happening anymore. But I'm reliving it. I'm allowing it to possess me. It's just like, does that kind of make sense? What we're saying is, let's take the pot off the stove so you quit burning your hands on it. But first, let's shut off the stove. Oh, wow, holy shit. That's deep. That's what they're kind of saying here. Stop the story. Stop it, right? Just then what do we do?
It says we asked ourselves why we were angry. In most cases, it was found that our self-esteem, our pocketbooks, our ambitions, our personal relationships, including sex, were hurt or threatened. So we were sore, we were burned up.
Yeah, so most of us, I remember my sponsor said, why are you mad at these people? I couldn't tell you. Because they're assholes, or they did this, or they did that. Again, stuck to the story. Anybody? But now he's saying, now we're going to look at why I'm actually mad at these people, because they talk about, and I've had people say, oh, it doesn't say instincts, but this is what creates self. These are the things that create self. These are the things, what's that? On our grid list, we set opposite each name. What was it? Our injuries. Was it our, go ahead.
Was it our self-esteem, our pocketbooks, our ambitions, our personal relationships, including sex? Oh, wait. We're hurt or threatened. So we were sore, we were burned up. On our grudge list, we set opposite each name our injuries. Was it our self-esteem, our security, our ambitions, our personal or sex relations, which had been interfered with?
So on our worksheets, we have those broken up, right? And you can download those off of the thing. And so when you look at it, and here, when you put it down, we go from top to bottom. So what we suggest is you put one name, all the causes, right? Then the next name, all the causes. So if you have to take up 5 or 6 spaces, you can do that, right? And then and then once you finish all the name, then all the causes and all the names, then you move over to the first column. Personal relationships, self-esteem, and then you go all the way down through all the lists. So you get a rough idea how you respond to these situations when back then, right? And even still now, a lot of us, when we rethink about these things or refeel them. So did it interfere? So, and then you could kind of Google or ask somebody, or we could have a discussion if you're going through your for what these things mean. Because they kind of, you need to kind of learn how they relate to you, your self-esteem, your personal relationship in regards to these things. And we go through all that stuff, and we're usually as defined as this example. So when you see this example, this is basically what your 4 steps should be looking like. And when we use the worksheets, they look exactly like that, and just tick marks. A lot of people say, oh, you need to write it up. Why? You need to really feel it. You have been. You have been. Like how many times you need to go over the same car wreck? Right? Salvage what you can and move on. That's the whole idea of this, about finding the things that have been blocking us out. It's not reliving, refeeling, and going through all that crap again. Enough. It's not about being stuck to the story. That's what they're saying here. Enough. How many people just had enough? Like, you ever hear sometimes you're in the hallway, you can't open one door until another door closes? We're trying to close the door to the past so we can open the door to the future. Right? We're prepared to look at it from an entirely different view. We'll get into that in a minute. But those of us who've been successful in our lives say this is the turning point. This is the transition of the new and triumphant arch, which we pass to freedom. Because now what we're doing is we're incorporating the idea of prayer and something greater than ourselves to create relief and direction. So instead of being stuck in the story, we kind of pause what we're doing here, right? Stop. Hey, I'm getting stuck to the story. Let me incorporate some prayer, right? And focus on that a little while. Even though I may not understand it, something seems to happen within me sufficient enough to allow me to continue to move on where before I was crippled. Does that kind of make sense? So, but you need to experience that for you, because the talking about the 4-step and my experience with the 4-step can only help you, guide you through it. But you need to experience these things. And you'll see afterwards, right? That's why they're very specific on how they do it, right? It's not about changing methods or writing out life stories and all that. That's not the purpose of this. What's the purpose is to learn a new recipe that we're going to incorporate within our thinking and our meditation to have new direction in our lives. Does that kind of make sense? We agreed or disagreed?
Okay.
Okay, so go ahead.
We're usually as definite as this example.
So we went back through our lives.
We went back through our lives. Nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty.
Honesty about the situation. A lot of people say, was this honest? It's not asking you to assess whether it's honest or not, whether it's worth putting down. Well, like a lot of our story, we don't know if anybody ever suffer from blackouts here?
Yeah.
I don't know if some of that shit happened or not. But I've been saying it so long, I think it may have happened. It must have happened. Sometimes I see the people involved in it. It must have. So, honest about what's in my mind in the situations, even though it seems so like if it's happening in your thinking, then it's honest to you, right? And if it's causing you problems, then it's honest to you. Anybody ever talk shit to themselves here? So the people around you say that's not true, but it's true to you. And as long as you're still thinking and feeling that way, how successful are you going to be in making peace with you to allow something greater than you to give you new direction when you're still blocked with those ideas?
Not very.
And if you're working on those ideas, you're re-strengthening them. Right? It's like you know, I've never met anybody with a kid has ever taken the diaper and said, well, let's let them sit in it a little longer and we'll work. Change the diaper. Get rid of it without regret. Does that kind of make sense? No, let's look at it a little longer. Why? Right? I know the shit thing again. I don't know what it is with me. Yeah, like segue. Let's talk about shit. I don't know. Anyways, move on.
Okay. When we were finished, we considered it carefully. The first thing apparent was that this world and its people were often quite wrong.
Yeah, we like that part, right? That's good enough. We don't need to go any further.
Yeah.
They're all wrong, right?
To conclude that others were wrong was as far as most of us ever got.
True or false? How many people's story is mostly about other people's wrongs and injustices? And it kind of gives us a kind of, and I'm talking on my own experience. Well, look at why I am the way I am. Look at this. Look, I'm stuck to the story. I'm clinging to the story is giving me excuse to why I am the way. Well, I have no way out of it. Now I don't have to be that way anymore. I got a new story being presented to me. It's pretty cool. Go ahead.
To conclude that others were wrong is as far as most of us ever got. The usual outcome is that people continued to wrong us and we stayed sore.
Anybody? We're like a magnet for those people. You ever notice that? We're like a magnet for the same situations over and over because we're attracting it subconsciously. We're looking for it. We'll pass 5 good people to find a person that'll give us exactly what we're looking for. I mean, that sucks, right? Like, I hate that. I'm talking out of experience, right? Excuse me. Look at that person over there with a red light flashing on their head. I'm trying to get to them. Will you please move out of my way? Why? Because I'm attracting what I am. Like later on, you'll see it's really interesting. There's an exercise we get into the book that changes what we attract. But like attracts like. I don't care who you are. And how many people's moved here to get away from people? How many people found the exact same people when you got off the bus? It's like, hey, and you go, hey, let's start this story over again. It's like, I don't attract those people in my life anymore. It's kind of weird, but I've never walked down the street, maybe because I'm old, who knows, but it's been a long time since I said, hey, buddy, you want to score? Like, I just don't have that look. Hey, you want to buy a hot watch? I just don't attract that anymore. Anyways, go ahead.
The usual outcome was that people continued to wrong us and we stayed sore. Sometimes it was remorse, and then we were sore at ourselves.
So there's the double-edged blade. After you're done being resentful at these people, who do you turn on?
Yourself.
How many people turn on themselves here? How many people want that to stop?
Yep.
So in order to do that, you need to get down to the recipe and incorporate something that allows you to... How many people remember those old records? Remember those records? You put them on the player right? And then you play them, and as the grooves got deeper, it got harder and harder for the needle to make it over to the next. You know how sometimes it got stuck and go the same, and then either you threw something at the record player or you gave it a little jolt, and then you got tired of ruining it, so then you put weight on it, and the weight would allow it to go past that point of being stuck. That's what we're putting weight on it, and the weight is prayer. It didn't say, do you understand? It says, try it. Try it. Let's create a new experience. Let's move past where I used to get stuck all the time. That's what it's kind of saying, right? Go ahead.
But the more we fought and tried to have our own way, the worse matters got.
You notice that doesn't need to be explained? Anybody need that explained? No.
Yeah. As in war, the victor only seemed to win.
Yeah, we showed them. Anybody ever have that? We showed them or did things to people that we love, and at the time you feel like justified in it. How many people? And then you walk away with that pain. You can't believe the pain and anger. Then you start carrying it. That's what they're talking about. Yeah, I showed them. And it's usually the people we love, and we cause more pain, more agony, and then we start carrying the pain that we caused. Right? And it's that circle. Okay, go ahead.
Our moments of triumph were short-lived. It is plain that a life which includes deep resentment leads only to futility and unhappiness.
Deep resentment. You notice it didn't say alcoholism. Deep resentment, rooted below the surface, the things that are eating our lunch, the things that are making our decisions for us at a subconscious level. So you notice you can only see one resentment at a time. And when you made that list, some of that stuff was pretty deep. Anybody here? And it goes pretty far back. And some of it has some pretty big lumps attached to it of energy, pain, and agony. Anybody? Mm-hmm. So it's in this big. Like I like using what do you call that when you give pictures of stuff like that? Anyways, it's like, remember those big pressure pots and you lock it, right? There was a time that they didn't have release valves, pressure valves. There's actually, and they're blowing up, right? So they put pressure valves in it, right? So what we're doing here is we're inserting a pressure valve within this toxicity within our spirit that's slowly starting to release our attachment or this toxicity that we're attached to by changing the story and how we look at it. Mm-hmm. And that's why sometimes when you talk about things or when other people talk about things, you ever notice you have that thing raise up inside of you? We want to get to a place where it's out of a place of empathy, not of your own pain resurfacing. And that's possible because I've been there, right? Usually we're more attached to our own pain. That's what we're mistaking it as as empathy. There's a big difference, right? And I hope one day you get to experience that, right? Because most of the time I was always only associated or concerned with my pain. Nobody in this group here, right? Right? So, but as I went through this, as my story started to change, it was pretty wild. Anyways, go ahead.
To the precise extent that we permit these, do we squander the hours that might have been worthwhile?
Oh, man. To the precise extent that who permits these?
That I do.
Yeah, this is where people start tearing out the page, throwing the book, or getting offline. They get angry. I don't permit these things, man. And then they leave pissed off at us for the next half an hour, right? And then they go back to themselves, right? We're only intermission. Then they go back to the real problem themselves. So permit these. How many people spend time thinking about shit that they don't want to think about? And when you're thinking about it, you continue to think about it. Because you know what? I already know how the story ends, but let's see. Maybe there's a different ending to it. You go through the whole thing. And you kind of go, oh, anybody? And you see, well, wait a minute. That's not the worst story. You go, it's not? You said, no. Remember this one? Oh, yes, I remember that one. Well, wait. You only half measures. Let's get into it. Yeah, okay, let's get into it. Let me shut everything off. Let me put the phone away, get some ice cream light on. Oh, yeah. Oh my God, yeah. Anybody? Then you go to bed exhausted, and you get up and start it all over again, stuck to the story. Lack of power. And it's not, I'm not making fun, but that's all we have is the story. It dictates to us. We don't dictate to it. So what we're getting here is that we permit means for the first time, it's kind of like, here. What's that? It's your own personal remote control. For what? For you. What do you mean for me? Yes. If you don't like the movie or the script or what the narrator's saying, here, we're going to change it for a second. How am I going to change? By not participating in the story just for this moment. Let's change the story. How am I going to do that? Let's concentrate on this prayer for a minute. Let's concentrate on the point of the exercise. Can we do that? Yeah, I can. But I really like the story. No, you don't like the story. It doesn't taste good anymore. No, it doesn't, does it? No, it doesn't. It's kind of moldy. Put the bread down. Let's put the dimmer light up on this thing because the light's too low. You can't see all the mold around that thing. Tastes like shit, doesn't it? Yes, because it's a shit sandwich. And you've been eating it too long. You've been trying to change the bread, but it's the same thing. Right? So they're saying, stop. Let's just stop. Quit permitting it, but it's hard. So what we're looking for is progress here. What do you mean by progress? Well, before I used to go through the whole story and then another story. Here, I'm going to stop the story. I'm going to try to stop it. I'm going to try to pray, and I'm going to remind myself what the point of this exercise is. It's to get rid of this stuff without regret, to not be attached to it, to have a new relationship with it. And if you're talking to yourself like that, it may sound kind of weird, but it's about time you started having a positive conversation. Because you are talking to yourself either way, right? Anybody? Mm-hmm. And now the narrator isn't narrating the story anymore. You're going, hold it. Enough of your shit. We're going to change the dialogue here, right? We're going to change this up a bit. And you're talking for the first time to the narrator. So what you've become for the first time without realizing is an observer to your story. You're not a participant. You've actually stepped back. You're trying to turn down the volume or the attachment to it to look at it differently and say, I don't like this. I'm going to move this over here. But in order to do that, I need to concentrate on this prayer. And I used to go through that prayer over and over and over. When I did my first prayer, I would get to a place of dry heaving. Like I come from a very traumatic, trauma-based background. And for the first time, all the other times I tried to look at this stuff was like opening a can of worms. But I had no way of closing it because I didn't have prayer. I didn't have this access to what they were offering here. So the first time in my life, I was able to look at my life with a different lens, a spiritual lens, right? And I was able to bring something greater than me by just my willingness to do it. And I started getting relief, enough relief that I was able to continue on where before it used to cripple me. Does that kind of make sense? So there is something here. Because I remember going, well, why does it work when I pray and it doesn't work when I don't pray? And I would think about that. I would try to create that relief by not praying. That I wanted to create it within me. I wanted to do it, but I was unable to do that. So being convinced, right? And hopefully that helps somebody. But it was a game changer for me. That realizing that everything I'm thinking, everything I'm feeling, and everything I'm concentrating on is permitted by who now? Me. Why they didn't say that before is because I didn't have access to this recipe or access to this power or made a decision for a new experience. Right? So now they're showing me how to chip away at this thing to have a new experience. So now they're going to reiterate why it's so important of this channel changer within inside of me of having the narrator read a new script. And what I'm doing is I'm telling the narrator what the script is now. He's not telling me. Does that kind of make sense? Does this kind of make any sense to anybody? It's pretty cool. How many people find this kind of cool? Because it was a game changer for me. And I didn't hear this stuff in meetings. And I didn't hear this stuff in 12 and 12. I didn't hear this stuff in the treatment. I didn't hear this. But where am I hearing it? Right here in the book. Isn't that interesting? It's been here all along. Well, how come I didn't know it? Because I didn't do it. Oh, let's move on. Oh, I talked about doing it. Yeah, give me a lot of dates. Okay, go ahead.
To the precise extent that we permit these, do we squander the hours that might have been worthwhile?
Hours, days, weeks, months. When you spend the time, when you look at the amount of time and energy you spend thinking about you, it's almost sickening, isn't it? But I am my favorite TV show. Okay, go ahead.
Horror show.
Yeah.
But with the alcoholic, whose hope is the maintenance and growth of a spiritual experience, this business of resentment is infinitely grave.
Infinitely grave. Is that serious wording, terminology? Infinitely grave. Grave. Is that something appealing that you'd like to experience on a No. Infinitely grave. Okay, go ahead.
We found that it is fatal.
Oh my God. In case you didn't understand grave, let's go to fatal. What's fatal? The energy attached to these things that we're poisoning ourselves with, is attached to our spirit, that makes us spiritually sick. So what makes us spiritually sick? And it's really interesting where they go with this. Go ahead.
For when harboring such feelings, we
Hold
cut
it.
ourselves off from. Yeah.
For when harboring such feelings, emotions, and energy. You notice that energy, when you start living this, you notice your whole demeanor changes? You hear a lot of people say, I have an anxiety disorder. No, you have a thinking disorder. I have a thinking, yes, because you have an attachment disorder. What? I don't like that idea that I have an attachment disorder that makes me have a thinking disorder that gives me an anxiety disorder. So what's my problem? Lack of power to create a change. So I've become spiritually ill as the result of whose thinking? An attachment. Mine. I've made myself sick. So I remember I was doing a group, and I was talking to my wife about something. She says, "Oh, I think the same way," and alarmed me for a second. Oh my God. She goes, we're in a situation. She goes, I said, I can't afford resentments. She says, I can. She's a normie, right? She says, I can. I said, well, I said, no, you can't. She goes, wait a minute. The difference between me and you is somewhere along the line, you'll find yourself at the bottom of a bottle still thinking it's true. Somewhere along the line, I'll see it's not serving me anything, and then I'll move on from it. That's what normal people do. We all have it. But for me, I don't have that. Let's assess it's poisoning me. It's like I build an arsenal. I build a story. I'm going to go burn their place down. Why? Because they didn't say hello to you this morning? Yeah. Because I know they're talking about me. They just moved in. I know. No. But anyways, like we're crazy. Anybody? Normal functioning somewhat people go, you know what? I think this is not working for me. Because we create damage through alcoholism, we warp our thinking. Anybody? Because we're on a constant paranoia. Why are we paranoid? Because people might find out. Find out what? The shit you've been up to. How many people, right? Come on, some of you got it, right? Constant fear and tension. Why? Because there might be two of us that know. It's all right if I just know. But if two of us know, now we have a problem, right? It's like, that's why we always come, what do you know? I'm not, right? So, it's interesting. Go ahead.
We shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the spirit. The insanity of alcohol returns and we drink again.
So we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the spirit and the insanity returns. Now, you notice it didn't say the obsession. The insanity, the malady returns. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
And with us, to drink is to die. If we were to live, we had to be free of anger. The grouch and the brainstorm are not for us. They may be the dubious luxury of normal men, but for the alcoholic, these things are poison.
Right on. So there you go. So